Hi, I'm Carl Azus for CNN 10. In just 2 days, the United Kingdom is scheduled to leave the European Union. No country's done that since the EU was formed in 1993. Britain's exit, the Brexit, would leave 27 countries in the economic and political cooperative. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen by Friday. Britain's parliament has rejected the terms of the agreement between its government and the European Union, and a Brexit without an agreement, also called a no-deal Brexit or a crashing out by Britain, has a lot of opponents because it would come with uncertainty about issues like trade, immigration, borders, laws, and it could lead to a temporary downturn in the British economy. British Prime Minister Theresa May has requested that the EU extend the Brexit deadline again. It did that once earlier this year, and the new Brexit deadline would be on June 30th. But will European Union leaders agree to it? European Council President Donald Tusk, who heads up the political wing of the EU, has suggested offering Britain a flexible extension of the Brexit deadline that could last as long as a year. President Tusk says he wants to avoid an ongoing series of shorter deadlines and emergency meetings. The EU is holding a summit on Wednesday to discuss these proposals and figure out a way forward. Meantime, Britain's leader continues to battle an ongoing series of challenges.
We have a deal which cancels our EU membership fee, which stops the EU making our laws.
Theresa May's days as Prime Minister are numbered. May has said she will step down once Brexit is delivered. She's in charge of the UK at one of the most turbulent times in recent political history. In 2016, Theresa May won a leadership contest to become Britain's second female Prime Minister after David Cameron resigned following the shock vote for Brexit, Britain unexpectedly voting to leave the EU. As a long-serving MP and Home Secretary, Theresa May had built a reputation for getting things done. In her first speech as Prime Minister, May pledged to support the families who were just managing to survive financially and to fight social injustice.
The government I lead will be driven not by the interests of the privileged few, but by yours.
This platform and her pragmatism proved popular in her first year. To capitalise on a double-digit poll lead against the left-wing opposition party, Theresa May performed a political U-turn. After having ruled out an election several times, May called a snap general election for June 8, 2017.
So we need a general election, and we need one now.
It backfired. May was criticised for her manifesto and stiffness in the face of media questioning during the campaign and dubbed the Maybot. Her Conservative Party lost their majority and had to enter into a confidence and supply deal with the Democratic Unionist Party to form a government.
In the Democratic Unionist Party in particular.
Since the election, May has cut an isolated figure. She survived a Tory leadership challenge in December 2018, though key members of her cabinet have resigned. Brexit defines her premiership. There has been no consensus in the British Parliament over leaving the EU. Brexiteers advocate a clean break, others for a soft Brexit or a second referendum on EU membership. In November 2018, Theresa May and negotiators in Brussels settled on a draft deal for the UK to leave the EU. British MPs on both sides quickly attacked it. Some said it went too far, others said it didn't go far enough. Still, May is committed to passing her Brexit deal through Parliament to avoid the UK crashing out of the EU without a deal. Brexit is one of the most challenging projects ever undertaken by Parliament. The fact that May campaigned to remain in the EU in the referendum and leads a fractured minority government makes the job even harder.
10-second trivia. Under which U.S. president was a trade embargo first imposed between America and Cuba? Franklin D. Roosevelt, Dwight D. Eisenhower, Lyndon B. Johnson, or Richard M. Nixon? Though President John F. Kennedy expanded the embargo, it was President Dwight D. Eisenhower who first imposed it. It's still in place today. The embargo includes penalties on Cuba's economy, and it restricts the travel and business that Americans are allowed to do in Cuba. There were exceptions to the rule. One of them, a deal made in December, allowed Cuban citizens to play in baseball's major leagues. Previously, in order for them to do that, they'd had to defect to give up their Cuban citizenship, and they might not have been allowed back into Cuba afterward. Under this agreement, U.S. baseball teams would pay about 25% of the Cuban players' signing bonus to the Cuban Baseball Federation. The Trump administration had indicated it was reviewing the deal when it was made, and on Monday, the U.S. government canceled it. It says the Cuban Baseball Federation is part of Cuba's communist government, and because trade with Cuba is banned under the embargo, the baseball deal couldn't stand. The administration says it won't allow part of the Cuban government to take part of the athletes' wages. The Cuban Baseball Federation called the deal's cancellation politically motivated and said the deal made for a safer way for Cubans to play in the major leagues. Some have paid to be smuggled to other countries first to get around the U.S. embargo. Major League Baseball says it still supports the original goal of the agreement, which was to stop the human trafficking of baseball players from Cuba. From the field to the ice, today's positive athlete story actually spotlights two people. They're brothers in ice hockey, brothers in the fight against cancer, and they're brothers. Their names are Charlie and Will Capalbo. Charlie's been battling two kinds of cancer, and along with his attitude, the help he's getting from his family and community is an inspiration.
My favorite thing about being out on the ice is just feel the wind on your face.
The freedom, just being out there. I don't have anything else that bothers me. I get to think about Charlie too.
They're incredibly resilient, and it was so hard for him to see his older brother, who he idolized his whole life, suddenly weak and sick. And then there was some hope for him that he might be the person who could, be the cure for Charlie with his bone marrow.
It's about 25% chance that a sibling can be a match for a sibling.
The doctor stopped by to tell us that Will was the match, and we were so excited we wanted to call him. But I said to him, let's FaceTime it.
You are my match.
What? No.
Yeah.
Seriously?
You're a 9 out of 10 match.
Dude!
It was an unbelievable moment.
Just like complete shock, and to have a sibling donor just makes everything about it better.
Really helped Will because it gave him something he can do rather than just being there.
Charlie had his transplant with Will's cells on February 4th. And there's evidence that Will's cells are working and Charlie's body is accepting them and producing his own cells from it.
To be able to take bone marrow out of myself and put it in him to cure him, it's just kind of really powerful.
When Charlie first got sick and the news hit, social media, I was totally overwhelmed and not prepared for how awesome and loving people were going to be.
Totally unbelievable, unimaginable. A lot of it comes from the hockey community.
It's just been nonstop. Literally thousands of people have done something.
And it gets overwhelming at times.
Hey Charlie, it's Milan Lucic.
Sean Thornton.
Hey Charlie, Henrik Lundqvist here from the Rangers.
John Cena here.
I want to thank everybody.
This phrase right here has gotten me through a lot of tough times. Keep up the fight, man.
I think playing goalie really prepped me for some of the stuff that I was going to have to deal with here. Mentally and physically. More mentally.
Just to see him suit up again, that would be pretty powerful, emotional. I don't know if I'd be able to handle it, but it would be nice.
For today's 10 out of 10 segment, Firefighter Dodgeball. Sounds like it'd be a pretty intense variation of the sport. But when they're fully suited up, there's more to it than just having to dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. Firefighters from 2 New York departments were taking part in a drill to see how long their air cylinders last during a time of high activity. The answer ranged from 25 minutes to 51 minutes. The research wasn't as hotly contested as the game. Even if a burning spirit of competition flared up, at some point both teams would run out of air and need a breather. Still, the question remains, did the losing team feel smoked, hosed, or just burned out? With firefighters, I guess it's always the latter. I'm Carl Azus for CNN 10.